Thus says your brother Israel, you know all the hardship that we have met, how our fathers went down from Egypt and lived in Egypt a long time, and the Egyptians dealt harshly with us and our fathers. And when we cried to the Lord, he heard our voice and sent an angel and brought us out of Egypt. And here we are in Kadesh, a city on the edge of your territory. Please, let us pass through your land. We will not pass through field or vineyard or drink water from the well. We will go along the king's highway. We will not turn aside to the right hand or to the left until we have passed through your territory. But Edom said to them, you shall not pass through, lest I come out with a sword against you. And the people of Israel said to him, we will go up by the highway, and if we drink any of your water, I or my livestock, then I will pay it. Let me only pass through on foot, nothing more. But he said, you shall not pass through. And Edom came out against them with a large army and with a strong force. Thus Edom refused to give Israel passage through his territory, so Israel turned away from him. And they journeyed from Kadesh, and the people of Israel, the whole congregation, came to Mount Hor. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron at Mount Hor on the border of the land of Edom, let Aaron be gathered to his people, for he shall not enter the land that I have given to the people of Israel, because you have rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah. Take Aaron and Eleazar his son and bring them up to Mount Hor. And strip Aaron of his garments and put them on Eleazar his son. And Aaron shall be gathered to his people and shall die there. Moses did as the Lord commanded, and he went up on Mount Hor in the sight of all the congregation. And Moses stripped Aaron of his garments and put them on Eleazar his son. And Aaron died there on the top of the mountain. Then Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain, and when all the congregation saw that Aaron had perished, all the house of Israel wept for Aaron 30 days.
It's not very often that I come and talk to you at the third service. I thought I'd start with some book recommendations that I've read recently that has really impacted me a lot. Is it up? If you can bring it up, please. Next slide. Yeah, there we go. 3 books. I'm sure these are recorded, so you can look at it later. But Sky Jethany's book called With talks about our posture to God and some of the different postures and how they seem okay, but really misses the point, and really God is calling a life to be with Him. That's the focus of the book, but it's definitely worth the read. If you're struggling with prayer, which I'm sure everybody is, because, hey, who's going to put up their hand and say, I'm a prayer warrior? There is definitely helpful perspective in Philip Yancey's book, Prayer. Does it make any difference? And if you want to find the answer to that question, you can read that book. Reading a book doesn't really make us people of prayer. We need to pray to become people of prayer. However, helpful perspectives and ideas are found in that book, and it really has helped me. Lastly, Dane Ortland's book, Gentle and Lowly, looking at the heart of Jesus Christ, going through the Gospels and going through some of our older generation's books, right? Those times when, during the revival, and really thinking about the heart of Jesus and seeing ourselves from the heart of Jesus was very helpful for me as well. So I thought I'd start the talk with a few book recommendations, and we'll get into the talk now. So we're looking at the story in Numbers. I was thinking about what I might share with this congregation, and I thought about some of the recent experiences and some of the learnings, and then I decided to stick with the daily Bible reading. So we went through the book of, we've been through the journey of book of Numbers, and we'll continue to do that for a little bit longer. Today, I titled the talk, Life's Setbacks, because we experience setbacks. We want our lives to look like a straight line. Can we look at that straight line that I draw? Yeah, can you? Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. We want our lives to look like a straight line. What is a straight line? If you have a point A and if you have a point B, right? A straight line is the shortest possible way that you can travel between those two. The least resistance, the least problems, no issues and concerns. We want to get from where we are to the place that we want to get to. However, often we find our lives more like this next picture, right? Which is not nearly a straight line. And it's a bit of a spaghetti moving up and down, and sometimes sideways, and sometimes even looking like we are going backwards. And that's what we find in life. And we spend so much of our life trying to straighten our path. We want to get to somewhere, whether that is the studies that we are doing, I want to graduate, I want to get a mark, I want to pass the exam, right? Or getting the first job, or in your job, trying to achieve a milestone or get something done. With the church ministry as well, what church ministry will I serve? And what end am I aiming for? And how can I make that way a straight way so I can reach the end? And in finding our life's partners as well, when we look for the person who we want to spend the rest of our lives with, we want to have a straight way, right? And when we finally end there, now that's beginning of another journey, which we want and we hope to be straight as well. And as I thought about this, I thought that we actually spend so much of our time thinking about what's going to happen in the future, thinking about all the possible setbacks, all the interruptions, all the ways that we can be detracted from us going to the place that we want to go to, and we spend our time and energy to think about what's going to happen in the future and try to move those obstacles out, try to move those risks out, right? So that we can go to that place with ease. In the past, people referred to their elders. And that is why in certain societies, even today, if you have an elderly person, a pregnant woman, and a child, and if you could only save one, some societies will choose to save the elder. That is because they carry the experience, they carry the knowledge, they carry the wisdom of that society that can be found nowhere else. In today's world, we have so many self-help books out there, right? And they are bestsellers. They all promise us that if you use these techniques, if you use these tips, if you do just as I tell you, then you'll be able to go from where you are to the place where you want to be without a problem, without issues, the easiest way, and also make that journey a pleasurable one too. And even we don't need books anymore today, because what do we get when we open up our social media, right? We go to Instagram, we go to Facebook, we go to whatever we go to, and there are so many hints of life, right? So many tips. If you do this, then you will get this. And if you follow these guidelines, then you will be able to convince your friend, your wife, whatever it is, and it'll take you to the place that you want to go to. Some Christians think that they have a better self-help book by the name of the Bible. And they think that if they can figure out the Bible, then we can now have got the secret that nobody else in the world has to go to the place that we want to go to. So when the Bible says something will set your path straight, we look around there trying to figure out what is it that I need to do so that my path can be straight. We read the Bible. We pray to God to open ways and open doors. And I don't want to discourage us from praying to God for these things, because I think we ought to and we need to. We pray to God to make our requests known to Him so that we can achieve or get to places that we think are right. And some people, rightly or wrongly, may choose to serve in the church ministry because, hey, what better way is there to tap into God's blessings, into God's secret store, so that I can enjoy the easiness of life as I live through. And while we ought to go to God with our concerns of our hearts, while we ought to talk to God and look to God to help God in our lives, we end up with setbacks in life. Our lives are never nearly as straight as we like them to be. Isn't that right? Our lives seems to be that, Yes, we are trying to get everything right. Yes, we are bringing all the right principles, right tools, and I'm getting everything ready. And we encounter setbacks in our steps every now and then, and often in the time that we least expect. In today's text, we see two exhibits of setbacks, which we want to have a look at together. And the first setback that we want to look at is the rejection of passage through Edom for the Israelites. Now, for this one, I'm going to give you a little bit of context because Numbers stories are really moving very quickly. So in a few weeks back, we were at the beginning of the 40-year journey and spying the land of Canaan, and all of those things were happening. In today's story, where we are today, is actually towards the end of the journey because we see the passage through Edom, and we see the death of Aaron, which we know has taken place in the 40th year of their journey, which is toward the end of their journey. So that's one thing to remember, that this story that we're going to be looking today is toward that end of that 40-year journey. The other thing to look at is in the map that I want to show you. Yes, so that's kind of the map of the travel since Exodus. So on the left-hand side is where they started from, and where the arrow is after around 40 years of travel in the wilderness, they have arrived at Kadesh. And Edom is to the right of Kadesh. So let's have a look at the story. So the story goes like this, that they've now come to the land of Kadesh, or Kadesh Barnea, and then they want to go through Edom, right, to this other side so that they can move up north a little bit more and reach the promised land. They've come to this place, and when they now try to go through Edom, they want to obviously get permission from their neighbor, so they talk to them. Now, if you look at the situation, everything seems to be right. Because now they're at about 40 years in their journey, right? And God said that you'll be wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, and people knew the end was pretty near. The timing seems to be right. And where they were from, the path is right. Because if they don't go through Edom, then they have to go around Edom. Can we have a look at the next map quickly? And I was trying to figure out, using this map, what kind of a distance it might be that they had to travel. And I found that little legend up there, which is 60 kilometers is that little arrow. And I copy-pasted it, moved it down, and I could put about two of them on a vertical axis there. So it will be about 120 kilometers that they will need to travel down to go through Edom. So where they were, the timing was right, and the path seems to be the right path. And you know what? How did they end up at Kadesh? Did they choose to say, okay, if we go to Kadesh and if we go through Edom, then we can get to the place? No. They were there because the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire has led them. They're not there by some miscalculated, some misplanned plan that Moses or Aaron made. They are there because God has led them there. And they also recognize that Edom is in fact their brother, because Israelites all come from who? Jacob the father, and Jacob had a brother called Esau, who became the nation of Edom. So Israelites and Edom are really brothers as far as nations are concerned. They must have said, God has led us to this place, and this is our brother nation. Out of all of the nations that we need to go through. Wouldn't they have said that? And there is nothing that suggests that they've done something wrong in this journey. They obeyed all the way to come here, and they are now at a place where they need to cross Edom so that they can go to the promised land. It seems that everything was right. And now Moses and the Israelites are polite and sends a letter and a messenger to the Edomites. And Pastor Monique has just read that for us. I'm going to read that again so that we can see how polite and nice they were to their brothers. Verse 14 of chapter 20 of Numbers reads, Moses sent out messenger from Kadesh to the king of Edom. Thus says your brother Israel, you know all the hardship that we have met, how our fathers went down to Egypt, and we lived in Egypt a long time, and the Egyptians dealt harshly with us and our fathers. And when we cried to the Lord, he heard our voice and sent an angel and brought us out of Egypt. And here we are in Kadesh, a city on the edge of your territory. Please let us pass through your land. We will not pass through field or vineyard or drink water from a well. We will go along the king's highway. We will not turn side to the right hand or to the left until we have passed through your territory. They've sent this message. Now, what do you think? When they sent this message to Edom, do you think they were expecting a no for an answer? Absolutely not. If I were one of them, I would have expected a big yes, please come through, and actually we'll give you some water and something to eat. You are my brother. But instead, they get a no. When everything seems right, when they've followed God's lead, and when this is the right way to go through, the answer comes back a no. What do? They can't believe that this is happening. They send another message to Edom. Right? And we read the second try in verse 19. And the people of Israel said to him, now the nations are being personified, we will go up by the highway, and if we drink of your water, I and my livestock, then I will pay for it. Let me only pass through on foot, nothing more. Because otherwise, what they need to do is they need to go backwards. They've just traveled up north 120 kilometers to reach Kadesh. Now they need to be going down 120 kilometers, move across to east, and then move 120 kilometers up, right? So it looks like something like at least 240 kilometers of extra journey. But the answer comes back, and the answer is no. And they are armed and they're ready to fight. And what does Israel do? In verse 21 of today's text, it says, "Thus Edom refused to give Israel passage through his territory, so Israel turned away from him." What a setback. What a heartbreaking situation would that be for them to go all the way. And they had to travel extra 240 kilometers. You may think, well, what is really that, right? They had babies, they had all their cooking utensils, everything that they owned with them, and all the cattle and all their animals as well. And for the Levites, I was looking up how heavy the Ark of the Covenant might be, because I was thinking Ark of Covenant is going to be quite heavy, right? It's made out of wood and it's got gold on top. And the wood is probably not the IKEA type wood, right? It's going to be solid wood, good wood, right? Heavy wood. And then the golden thing, the cherubim that's on the top of it, is probably not hollow inside, right? So I did a bit of a search around, and obviously we can never know for sure, but people think it might have been 80 to 90 kilograms in weight. So if four people were carrying it on their shoulders, each one might be carrying about 20 kilograms. And that's not easy for anyone to be doing. But this is what Israel was now facing. And what does it say? What does the Bible say? It says that Israel turned away from him. Here is no complaint. Here is no people grumbling. Don't we know these Israelites to be of grumbling and complaining and saying, let's find a new leader and go back to Egypt because this guy has led us the wrong way. But none of that is here. Is it not surprising? I thought it was surprising. And maybe the 40 years of wilderness journey has done something to them. But that is the first story of setback that's happened to Israel. Now we're going to move on to the second story that's introduced today, and that's the death of the high priest Aaron. So instead of traveling south directly so that they can cover the distance that they've lost already, they travel northeast to a mountain called Mount Hor. And in fact, God says all of the congregation should go there. Now what's going to happen is that high priest Aaron's going to die there, but God moved everybody to that mountain because God wanted everybody to be there, I guess. And now God speaks to Moses and say, take Aaron and take his son Eleazar, go up to the mountain where Aaron will die. And here, Aaron, spending 40 years in the wilderness with these people, leading them and guiding them and working as their high priest. We don't really see any recorded thanks to Aaron. Nobody comes, there's no bye-bye ceremony to say thanks to Aaron. Thanks for the 40 years of leading us, and we know that we've been a terrible people, but you've led us through. There's no seeing of the promised land, just like Moses will do soon. Aaron dies in a way that is just very average for someone who's so special. He goes up to the mountain, right? And he dies, and when he dies, he had to take off his own clothes because his high priestly garment need to go down to his son, but neither Moses or Eleazar could touch a dead person, right? So he takes off his own clothes, put it on Eleazar, and dies on that mountain. And the two people, Moses and Eleazar, makes their way down. Moses was a bit of a distant leader, it feels like. He's always right, he talks to God, and he always says the right thing. Whereas Aaron was a little bit more personable, isn't he? Right? He even joined the people at one stage to make the golden calf along with the people. He said a few lies to excuse himself. I think to the people, Aaron would have appeared to be someone who's personable, someone who understands us, a high priest that can go between God and us. And now, in the last year of their journey, they are losing Aaron. What did they do? I mean, the young Eleazar, who is probably not that young because Moses is probably about 120 years old, and Aaron was his older brother, so Eleazar is probably a grandfather by him or himself already. But this young Eleazar, we don't really know him. We liked Aaron. He led us all this way. And losing a leader, a beloved leader, is never easy, is it? I remember in my high school, if I can think of one sermon that I can remember in my high school years, or maybe in my youth altogether, there is one sermon by this pastor. But he had to leave us in the middle of his ministry. And it was heartbreaking for me as a young high school student. To lose a beloved leader is not an easy thing. Yes, God succeeded Aaron with Eleazar, and yes, God continues to provide that high priestly role. But seeing Aaron die also prompts that Moses is going to die soon as well. And here, Israel experiences another setback of losing their high priest. But again, we do not hear any grumbling. There's no revolt. There's nobody that says, now Aaron is dead, we can elect a new leader and we can go back to Egypt. For some reason, Israel is very quiet. And that's the story that we have today. Now, from today's story, I want to think about a few lessons that we can learn from the stories. The first, I think, is this, that God shows us that our life is more than the destination, that every step in the journey is important for God. In fact, if you think about our desire to be more like Jesus Christ, you may think of that as a destination. But it is not that. We don't suddenly do things and try things and pray the right prayer and read the right passage and try to live the right life and one day become Christ-like. It is our journey that makes us Christ-like. It is our journey that makes us holy. It is our journey that prepares for the time where we could be used for greater purposes for God. If it was only about the destination, then today's stories will be failure stories, and God might well have failed in his deliverance of Israel. But if you look at it from God's perspective, God is leading them up to Kadesh, giving them the setback so that they have to travel down backwards 120 kilometers so that they can go around Edom for a purpose. And for God, every step counts. And the second point I think we can learn from today is that we are called to a humble faith. We call this faith. There's no explanation of why these events had to happen. There's no explanation from God or from Moses or from anybody saying, actually, this has helped us, or this will help us for this, or this has helped us in this way. But we know that God is in control. We confess that God knows, and we say that we don't know, we cannot understand, we will not understand, but we still have our faith in you because you have promised in your word that all things will work together for the good of those whom He loves, and that is us. In the midst of the setbacks, sometimes a word from our friend that says, God still loves you, God is in control, God is still leading us, may not be the greatest comfort that we may gain. But imagine if those words were to come from the mouth of Jesus, reaching out with His nail-pierced hand and saying, I know you don't understand. I know you may not understand. I know that some of these things you will never understand. But would you trust me? Would you walk with me? And that is the last point that I want to share with you. Because I think God calls us to a life that is with Jesus. We think about the destination. We think about how we are going to get there. We think about removing all the obstacles so that we can have a straighter path to that end as we possibly can have. But for God, every step is important. And whether that looks like a straight line to us or whether that looks like a crooked line to us, Jesus is with us every step. And isn't that our experience that sometimes the setbacks in our lives are the very things that brings us close to Jesus, brings us back to Jesus? No matter where we are today, whether we are sailing on a good wind or whether we are in a stormy weather, God calls us to a life that is with Him, that is with Jesus. If our destination is Jesus, then can we say there is really no setbacks? In fact, all of these setbacks, these things that help us to go back to Jesus, may well be called set forwards. But if our destination is something other than Jesus, then our setbacks may be an alarm and a signal to say, where are you heading? And who are you walking with? Who's guiding your way and your path? And as I was reflecting on these thoughts, I thought maybe our setbacks draw that straight line in God's view. Maybe in God's view, our squiggly line and our setbacks and our journeys through the wilderness is actually a straight line to the heart of Jesus Christ. That even though it looks like a setback, things look like a pain and suffering, God is using all of those things as the best tool, as the best path to take us from where we are to where Jesus Christ is, to where Christ-likeness is, to where our holiness is. So amidst our setbacks, let us confess with humility that God is indeed in control, and that all things work together for us in God's world, that through it all, we are brought closer and closer to Jesus Christ every day. So as we reflect on our life setbacks, and I know some of us may be in a difficult situation, and I don't know if there are any pains or sufferings amongst us that my words might have seemed like trivializing, but God is in control. Let us remember that. And God takes us to places which will benefit us, which will lead us to Christ-likeness. And let us be thankful for all the things that happens in our lives. Every point in our journey matters to God. And may that bless us. Let us pray.